Well, it's interesting because there was a couple examples that the only reason they capsized is because they were showing off to their friends. Especially there's one on a lee helm on Lake Travis that was on a lee shore, couldn't drive down, didn't have any experienced crew on it, got too much of a puff and then went over. And now, if you asked him today, he thinks that was a fun, enjoyable event or something. I don't. I don't. I won't say his name here. I know Bill knows him personally, so do I. But, and I've had a couple other examples of that where people were just showing off. Okay, like Ron just said, you can't fix stupid. If people are out overdriving their sports car, overdriving their boat, you can't fix that. But what I found is that a lot of the capsizes out there, almost all of them, were from what do you call shit? When I say shit happens, they didn't anticipate a storm or didn't anticipate a weather front coming in correctly. And not that they, and so some of it is you can. I mean, we've been in conditions out there that, we probably, in fact, we got hit on the Trip Cup going over just here back in June. Out there in the middle of the night, things look great. There's a little front line, a little green off to the north of us. And I went down below, and if I brought up on the screen, you see we probably got hit, went from 4 knots of wind to like 30 or 40 knots of wind. And my brother was on the helm, and I think he went every direction on the track, spinning that boat with the screecher and main up. And so we survived that and trying to get everything done. But that was a minor case. But the issue here is really knowing what do you do from storm survival. What do you do? I mean, Randy talked a little bit about this earlier. But really, what do you do to survive a storm? And one of the ones I'll start with is that Meade spoke here, this is probably close to 20 years ago, about getting hit by a storm. And we're going to have a bunch of stories here, but this particular example was we were out on the Bayview Mac. We could see the storm coming across. It was like a monster clawing its way across Harbor Beach and out into the lake. And so we had a monohull in front of us, probably several miles in front, full spin. We're under full spin. We can see the storm coming. And so what do you do? And so the one thing we remember that Meade said that again, if you get hit, of course, fortunately we got the spinnaker down. We keyed off that monohull, and all of a sudden he disappeared. I don't know what happened to him to this day. But we got the spin down. Well, almost. It was about 6 feet out. But we got hit with a 60-knot gust. And so we quickly, from my discussion with Meade, and what he told us is put the boat into a control 45. And so 45 degrees off the wind, sheeted out. The boat is shaking. If you shook something as hard as you could shake, that's how hard it shook our boat. But I kept the boat moving, because what Meade told me was keep it moving. If you get hit with something like that, and you go into like a monohull, which is heave 2, it'll take you over backwards. And so I believe to this day that if I had heave 2 in that, I'd have gone over backwards. But I did a control 45 like Meade said, and I kept that boat moving. Just not a lot, just moving. So we were going forward. So that's an example of from a storm recovery or storm survival perspective. So I know, Randy, when you were talking about I think on the shore about the different, from a boat going from a reef, or reef or double reef, from the jib to just the mast. I mean, there's a scenario of events for a boat that you should know what to do before that storm hits you. I mean, there's a lot of even our perspectives over the years. We've got hit by a bunch of storms. We've shredded sails. We've gotten close. We have not flipped, knock on wood, but we have come close a number of times. And so part of this tonight, what I wanted to do, we can, I'm sure Ron can spend the next 2 hours, but we wanted to really understand some different scenarios, some things that you've learned on how to survive a storm. And so we are actually recording this tonight. I'm going to take the mic over to whoever's going to talk. And we're trying to record this because we're now with U.S. Sailing wants to develop training material that we put out for multi-hull sailors of these types of boats, so that we can pass that information on to not just this audience, but the wider audience. And so with that, I guess I'll start with anybody who wants to. Randy, I'd like you just to repeat what you told some people at the dock the other day, because not everybody was there, of what you saw as the scenario for depowering.
Okay, well, I'll say that, but I'll have a fun one after that.
Okay, go ahead. I'm going to record you here too. So.
Okay. So it was just a Chicago Max story where we saw the monohulls going down with the spreader lights hitting the water on a little F-25C, and we didn't have any warning except for that going, well, I think it looks pretty windy ahead. So it was like all sails down, and we, just like you said, that when the squall hit, it was super windy. The mast almost, I thought it was going to jump off the mast step, and it was just going crazy. But we actually used the mast as our last resort, and we actually kept sailing. Not so much to finish the race, but just to be in control of the boat. So just that rotating mast is the only sail we had left. Jib down, main down, and it was pretty cool. We could go 5 or 6 knots, and couldn't go really high upwind, but having speed and the ability to steer, and the mast didn't jump off the step, so that was one thing to think about with the rotating mast. It's actually your storm jib. I mean, it's something that it's part of the game. But maybe I'll tell a really quick capsize story.
Yep.
It was probably the most fun capsize I ever did. It was somebody else's boat. That helps. It helped a lot. Okay, yeah. Anyway, so
I'm hearing the trend that you like to break stuff on other people's boats.
I'm not going to go into all those breaks.
Okay.
I could spend an evening. Anyway, this is a 75-foot cat called the Double Bullet. We're doing the Transpac, which is a race from Los Angeles to Honolulu, and it's usually a downwind, trade wind, high-speed thing to go to Hawaii, but you have to get by the Channel Islands, Catalina, and anyway, the islands off California, and that's usually pretty rough. And sure enough, it was. We had 6 of us. We had the owner. He forgot to put on his sea boots. Got cold. He's kind of an older guy that built the boat, so he was down. And I had my Whirl 1000 crew, was weightlifter dude, great catamaran sailor, this and that. But he got all seasick, so we got 2 down. Now we got only 4 of us left. We started with 6, and we had these 2 guys from Las Vegas. I said, here's what we got to do. Me and this other guy, Bob, we can sail all night, but why don't you, it was 10 o'clock at night, and I said, why don't you 2 from Las Vegas just get us to midnight, no problem. Me and this other guy, Bob, we'll take the boat all night long to the sunrise, no big deal. So I'm down off watch and on the windward hull, and it's like, you sit on a cooler with a big wheel, and you got the huge winches, and but it didn't have self-tailers, just had the main sheet on a Harkin cam cleat, so you could just let things out. And if you let the sails out, you could hear the whole boat as the sheet went on the winch. And the boat got kind of quiet. Okay, I guess we're up on one hull. Then I didn't hear any sails getting eased out, and I had my dry suit on, so the other 2 guys who were disabled were in the other hull, and just me and Bob were in there. I go, Bob, I guess I better run up there. So I slide the hatch open, jump out of my bunk. I was off watch. I started going up the trampoline. He goes, nope, you're never going to make it. But the nice thing about a really big boat is they don't capsize like a Hobie Cat. It's very slow motion, so you can watch all the stars going by the mast. There's time. I mean, it's not like wham. And I realized, I can't make it up there. They're not letting the sails out. We're going over. So I went back down the hull, closed the hatch, and sure enough, I heard the carbon fiber mast bang on the water, and then the boat turtled, and it was like, oh man, now we got 2 guys on deck, and I could hear the one guy, and he somehow found a way to get around. It's 45 feet wide and 75 feet long, right? So that's a long swim when you're under the trampoline like a fish getting dunked. And he found a spot somehow to get to the trampoline, and he was up there, but the other guy was getting a breath and then getting swamped under, and I thought we were going to lose him, and then he cut the tramp, got him up, and they both went, luckily, to the owner's side to that escape hatch. So we had all 4 over there, and just me and Bob in the other hull. And it kind of is a story about being somewhat prepared. So I had my dry suit on and everything. We go, okay, now we're upside down. So I go, well, I'm going to take my bunk cushion out and put it on the other side of the bunk and hop in my bunk, and we're just sitting there. And I go, Bob, why don't you take the EPIRB and throw it out the window, this escape hatch. So he threw it out there and, energized it, so we knew Coast Guard San Diego. We'd only been racing 12 hours. We started at noon. It's midnight. And I said, hey, Bob, what do you think? And he goes, oh, they'll probably be here. We're 200 miles. That's about the range of a 200 out, 200 back, and pick up 6 people off a boat. Fuel tank for a helicopter. That'll be a couple hours. So we got some peanuts out, and we're dry. And it's like everything got quiet when you're ripping on a boat like that. It's noisy and rough. And okay, it's capsize isn't that big a deal. We could last out here forever. So it wasn't like you're going to sink. It's not a monohull with lead pulling you down. And sure enough, hear the wop, wop, wop. And then I guess nobody else had the dry suits on, so I was on the deck. So I'd take the sick owner, put him in the little basket, send him up first to the helicopter. Then my Whirl 1000 crew was seasick, put him in there, sent him up, and then, anyway, got all the Las Vegas guys up next, and put them up there, and then my friend Bob sent him up, and then, of course, I took the basket last. But a couple things to learn from that experience is, number one, when they drop that basket from the helicopter, don't, like you probably would naturally do, grab the basket,
Touch it.
get electrocuted, because the static electricity from the prop spinning charges that basket. So the Coast Guard always tries to drop the basket to decharge the basket in the water before you touch it. So don't try to be the first.
There's
to grab
actually
it.
a line or something hang
Right,
from it so
yeah.
they can discharge it.
Try to
Yeah.
discharge. So.
Safety at Sea teaches that as well.
But then the other bad thing is you get up, all six of you up in the helicopter, and you want to say, hey, what the hell was going on? It's so loud you can't hear anything. So you can't even talk to the guy right next to you with your earplugs in. So we couldn't even talk about, the great story we just lived through until we got to San Diego. And, and then, I won't go on too long, but then we did rent a big tugboat thinking, okay, we can go back out there. We got some divers, and maybe we can, with a big giant propeller of a tugboat, maybe write this thing like a Hobie Cat. So we got out there and sent the divers down. They go, nope, your mast is broken. It's hanging by the halyards 160 feet down there. Okay. So we got a tow rope, and it's like 2 hulls and a kind of archy beams. So we're towing the thing home upside down at maybe 2 knots. So we ran out of food and hung our clothes by mistake up in the engine room to dry them out. And they smell like diesel, and it's like we're watching videos of tugboat people, and I mean, it's just like we went out fishing and tried to get enough food to get back to Los Angeles. And it took forever. Anyway, that's my story. I don't want to keep going.
So the rule is don't capsize.
Well, no, enjoyable.
Oh, yeah.
Don't get
Well, I don't know if that helps here.
What I heard was always sleep in your dry suit.
Always sleep in your dry suit, yeah. When it's someone else's boat, right? And I'm going to kind of interject some stories as we go, and then as people think about it, I want people to come up and discuss what they've learned. I mean, I think that's part of this issue tonight, is understand what have we learned about storm survival. And so I know there was a story I was talking to Alan earlier. I think Alan's actually left, isn't he? Yeah. So Alan's left, but he says on Adagio, one of the things they've learned over the years that they do, that if they got a storm front coming, they'll be a full spinnaker. They'll triple reef their main. They'll get all the reefs in their main, because that takes the longest. And they'll run that spinnaker right up to the kind of the ratty edge probably, but that's the quickest thing to get down. And so from a timing perspective, then they're ready for the storm with the triple reef main. And so stories like that are examples that, we probably could learn from that. I know there's the old analogy, there's no such thing as a brave old sailor. I think that applies to us as well. You do enough and you hit enough storms. I mean, we had a race down in the Gulf where we had another F-31 behind us, had everything up. We could hear on the radio, I think it was blowing 40 in Rockport or something is what we heard. We knew there was a storm coming. So we pretty much took everything down. I think we went to just a reef main, took everything down, and the boat behind us had spinnaker, had everything up. And finally it hit us, and we just shot out and took off. And by the time, they were only probably a few hundred yards behind us on that 31. And I don't know how they got that close, but they were a few hundred yards behind us in that 31 1D. And by the time they got all that stuff down and got under control, we were a mile ahead. I mean, it just took off. So it's hard when you're out racing to give up and say, we got to get through this storm, and we're not going to drive it right into it and then try to react. And so the biggest thing I've learned is be a little bit more cautious and take some sail down until you know what you're going to get hit with. I mean, if you want to watch a good video on weather and so forth, I know Chicago Yacht Club on their website now has one of the meteorologists did a whole thing on the storms on the Great Lakes and how these big tall clouds you see out there, when they collapse, you could be 20, 30 miles away and you're going to get hit and won't be any rain. Back in 17, when high priority flipped at midnight, I mean, the storms were purple and yellow and all that nasty colors out in the Gulf. Out in the Wisconsin. And when it hit the shore, they turned green. And that, in fact, the green disappeared when it got up middle of the lake. So but we had all hands on line. And to this day, we survived that, probably only because we had all hands on line and we had just the right angle. If we had the same angle that I think they had there on high priority, we probably would have been over as well. So trying to learn from some of this, and so that's just one of my stories so far, but I'm going to turn it over to Ron, because I know Ron has a ton of experience.
A few things came to mind while listening to all this, and also just thinking as well about, we had a lot of new multi-hulls this year in the Chicago Mac for the first time, and the Mac has a lot of safety requirements that you don't see everywhere. Man overboard beacons, required to have a storm jib, octahedral radar reflector. I mean, it's a lengthy list. Soulless flares, and honestly, we get bitched at a lot about it. Not just from multi-hulls, but monohulls. But first of all, I'm thinking about awareness, and when Mike and Ryan and myself and Don Walton capsized on Lake Ontario, I just want you guys to know I don't do this shit by myself.
It wasn't your fault.
I usually have help. I will tell you that we got caught looking the wrong way. There was a pretty big cell rolling in behind us. We had the spinnaker up, and we were really cooking. And Gamera was to starboard of us, maybe a half mile. We were pulling ahead of them, and we weren't paying attention. We didn't have our eyes open looking around, and because the danger was behind us, and we just flat, too late, we realized it. Got the spinnaker down, mostly, but we got pummeled by this, and I couldn't get the main sheet released, and was hammering on that. Ryan was driving, and we literally pitch pulled Cheeky Monkey. It wasn't over sideways. It was a pitch pull, and it was violent. And I fell out of the cockpit because I hung in too long trying to get things done. I actually broke the carbon fiber boom in half with my torso, and then got trapped under the boat. Now, I'm not going to go into the whole story. Got out. We all survived it. We had cutting tools. It was too rough with the tangle that I knew was underneath the boat to risk having somebody swim in there. Here's a multi-hull tip. Everybody on the boat on Cheeky Monkey had a dry bag, and those dry bags were clipped in, and they had things in them like passports, wallets, car keys. Don't really have to change underwear. You can buy that. But there's certain things you can't buy. So all that stuff was in those. We had to get those. We were in Canada. But I think, as Mike and Ryan could tell you, I've never shortchanged it on having safety preparation on the boat. All the right gear, knowing where it is, everybody knowing where it is, and knowing how to use it. And that's just some of the kind of preparation you have to take, because unfortunately, something like this may happen to you. Can't emphasize awareness of what's going on around you enough. Get your head out of the boat. Look around. Look at the water. You can see wind coming. Awareness that on the Great Lakes, they're lakes, but we have cold water in the middle of huge hot land masses and a lot of humidity and fronts, and it dials up these wicked storm systems, and all of us that have been sailing the Great Lakes for years have lived it. So you just gotta have a high level of awareness. Now, here's something it's not always about just surviving. And this is an old story, and I'm not going to go into all the details, but in 2001, Huron double-handed is a race that lots of us did frequently. The multi-hull guys really support it. It's where I met a lot of these guys, was doing the Huron double-handed. And this was before we had all the forecasting tools we had now. We didn't have smartphones. We didn't have windy and predict wind and all this stuff.
Starlink.
There was a small craft advisory. Well, for a multi-hull, small craft advisory is no big deal. It turned into a full-on gale. And it hit us at about 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, and it went from sailing off-wind with a spinnaker to seeing whitecaps on the horizon and seeing this front ripping toward us. Got the spinnaker down, tucked a double reef in the main. We get griped at a lot about having to carry storm jibs. We rigged a storm jib, and we sailed 130 miles upwind in a gale, and we're the only boat out of 63 to make it to Rogers City. And there's lots of guys in this room that were in that race and dropped out. This is not a knock on them. All the guys in this room say, why the hell didn't you drop out? Well, the truck and trailer were in Rogers City.
You need a Tyler to bring it to you.
But that's more just a testament to preparation, having the stuff you need, maybe not just to survive, but survive and get to where you need to go, not just be getting knocked around under your rotating rig, but actually being able to make some headway. And by the way, the waves in that race got to 15 plus.
10 to 20 feet, 55 knots of sustained wind for over 6 hours.
Yeah, and you'd get to the top of the wave and you'd get smacked with, you'd see up to 45 to 50. You'd drop down into the trough and the wind would drop down to 15, 12. And then as you went back up on the next wave, you got hit with the gust again. It was crazy. I've never been more physically beat up in my life. But anyways, just a couple of quick thoughts. You know, we could spend way too much time talking about all this.
The other
But
one, when Cheeky went over at Ontario 300, Mark and I had great race, that you should point out that about 70 retired out of the 200 fleet. And several multi-hulls, or not, several monohulls suffered broken rigs, the mastings, people with broken bones. Everybody was heading in early with a lot of failures. So
What amazed me too is when Ron went over, I could hear Ron on the radio, and he was so calm. We're over. It was just like it's no big deal, but it's okay.
I will tell you the fact that we survived. Everybody was okay.
the other thing with that is,
I'm sorry.
yeah, the other thing with that is that when we finally finished, the yacht club, the way you treated it, you must have been very professional, because what I sensed out of the yacht club was like, oh yeah, they went over. It's like matter of fact, yeah, is that what you guys do? All the time? And then you just take care of it. You know, it's like he just was very businesslike. They were just like, oh yeah, it's what multihulls do. It's just, it's something they live with. You know, it was, you know,
Say
the way
something
you took
about the
care.
Jesus night.
I literally got trapped under the boat. I had lines from the reefing lines from inside the boom were wrapped around me because the boom was broken in half. So I tried to swim out, and when the boat was upside down, it was amazing to me how everything became instinctive. And I can tell you I was underwater with the wind knocked out of me for about close to a minute because I got my last gasp of breath in as I was going under with the wind knocked out of me. And I was actually counting while I was underwater. And I reached behind me because the Traveler was back there, and I tried to drag myself back, and I had a tug, but I was in a what was ordinarily a low part of the cockpit. And as the boat would get picked up, I would be able to grab a quick gasp of breath, and then the boat would go back down in the wave, and I was underwater again, trying to get free. I had a multi-tool buried in my pocket, so I want you to think about being in that condition, underwater, trying to find a multi-tool to cut yourself free. It wasn't happening. And I've told a story about a revelation I had, which was Jesus appeared in front of me, and he said, I'll get you out of this one, but dude, you got to get a knife. and so it became the Jesus knife, and which is now on all your life jackets. If you do a Mac race, you got to have a one-hand knife that snaps out, and and trust me, that knife can just be a lifesaver. So if you get annoyed by seeing a lot of these gadgets, some of them you can blame on me, not all of them, but being prepared so you can get through one of these things, survive it. And on a happy note, Ryan and Mike and I could probably do a 1-hour stand-up routine on all the hilarious things that happened over that couple of days, including recovering the boat.
How did you get out? You didn't say how you actually got out.
I had to untie myself.
No, I came over so I rowed the boat over and landed on the windward side of the boat. And by the time I got over to the main hull, Mike was cutting ropes off of Ron's neck.
Now, that was Don's.
That was Don.
That was Don's neck.
Was that Don?
His wife
You
still
were,
thanks
you
me.
were already up. And Mike, I jump over the main hull upside down, and Mike's cutting Don
Don Walton.
Walton free, because he was on the leeward side of the boat getting the kite down. Because the kite was down, we had a reef. Just the main sail pulled us over. But these guys were professional.
I remember
We knew what we were getting into.
I remember when I came up.
We were ready.
I came up at the aft crossbeam. I remember the first thing I saw was Mike's face, and he was happy to see me because I had been down there a long time. So I know these guys were thinking not good things about
It was dark out.
what it.
It was still light.
Yeah, there was. Anyways, so that story could go on way too long for the context of this, and
Be ready.
there were some hilarious stories out of that.
My sails are messed up.
The good thing about some of these stories is, again, a lot of people don't know what they don't know. Like, hey, I've been out there. I know people that say, I don't need all this safety gear that Chicago has. I've been sailing for 20 years. I've never had any problems and so forth, until it does. And so, again, what I've learned and what I do different now, I would say back in the early days when we sailed an F-28 across the Gulf of Mexico with a group of us to go down to a race. First time, a bunch of Hobie Catters on an F-28 out in the Gulf and overnight. And our life jackets were all in the low AMA. I think there was one flashlight on the boat. There was no, these tethers, I don't know what the hell a tether is. And so when you look at that, when we look at what we did then, in fact, we thought at times we would see waves go by us out in the Gulf. Thought was that a house that just went by us? I mean, it was pretty extreme compared to what a Hobie Catter would typically see. And so that, and I think we had one guy down below that could sleep, which we called him our emergency backup because he could, and several of us were sick. And I mean, it was just one of those things that we made it through it. And we learned that, you know what, this is a lot more challenging than we thought. And so, again, if I fast forward now to just a storm that I think Brian and I came across, we were sailing down from Beaver Island. We took the sails all down. In fact, in that case, we put the motor down. Now, that wasn't a race, but we took a lot of more precaution than we probably ever would have in the past. And so, go ahead.
Oh, just a quick one.
Yep.
If you have running backs, always make sure the lured one can run free. Releasing a lured running back is the only reason strings is still upright.
Yep. Yep.
We were in the high priority storm with you guys, so.
Yep. Yep. So any other stories or comments or lessons learned here? I mean, part of this, why I did this session here, was trying to, again, learn from experience. I want to hear from you guys. We certainly have had our experiences and our things we've learned, but I want to hear yours. So go ahead, Alan.
Thanks. So I've got a little different perspective than a lot of you guys do. I'm an accident investigator by training. So most of us, 99.9% of the time, we never see an accident or have an accident. But that 0.1% of the time is literally my entire career. So I see the things most people don't see. And what I see a lot of is drivers in a car without a seatbelt having an undesirable outcome. Motorcycle riders without a helmet having an undesirable outcome. One thing I've never heard of is a man overboard event with a tether. I've never seen that. I'm sure it's happened. On my boat, we're very strict about jack lines, tethers, and life jackets. So as we talk about man overboard drills, to me, one great way to handle that is to just tether. And I've had crew that at first were kind of unfamiliar with it, not very comfortable with the tether. In the Chicago race, we were all tethered all the time, didn't slow anyone down, clip and unclip if you need. And so that's kind of just my thought is one word, just tether. It solves a lot of problems, just like a seat belt solves a lot of problems. 99.9% of the time we don't need it, but that 0.1% of the time is such an undesirable outcome. To me, it's obvious. So.
But then have your Jesus knife, so if you have to cut yourself free because you flip,
Yeah, exactly.
you can try to get free. We can't de-risk this to the point that there's no risk. There is no way possible to do that. And there's so many things out there that can happen. Again, try and just get people to think about it. What would you do when you're out in those conditions? Like you said, be aware of your surroundings. Be aware. I mean, now with Starlink out there, some of these offshore races, you have some of the best apps and forecasts. Although the guy on the video for the weather guy, he said, don't trust those things too far. It's good to know what you've got coming, but when you've got a big storm sitting off on Lake Michigan or off here on Michigan coming on Lake Huron and it's coming in, de-risking and reefing your sails early so you survive that. And because winning at any cost is not worth it. As we know, there's no prize money here. It's maybe best bragging rights, and you're not going to be panic button no matter what you do anyway. So you might as well take and de-risk. You might as well de-risk and add a couple more reefs in sooner. So, any other comments or experiences they want to share?
I got one.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess that's the only. Of course, my phone is ringing right now. No. I guess first I got a question for everybody. Yes, anybody in this group during a MAC race, not counting flipping a multi-hull, but has anybody fallen overboard? I guess I'm the only one in the room then who has.
Delivery to a MAC race, but not in the MAC race itself.
Okay, yeah, I have actually gone overboard during a MAC race on a monohull, but luckily did not lose contact with the boat. I was be able to hang on to a lazy jib sheet. I was running a lazy jib sheet around the rig. Boat is heeling over. I'm squeezing between the Genoa and the rig, and right as I'm squeezing between those two, my foot didn't know that it was caught on the active sheet, and as I'm stepping around, I pull the active sheet out of the self-tailer, the jib goes flying that I was leaning into, and I go overboard. I never lost contact hanging on to it, but I did learn a couple of things from that. First of all, it was light air during daylight, and the wind had just picked up and shifted, and that's why we were heeling. We weren't before. When I fell overboard, I had a life jacket on, and it went off. And the chance that I would have lost contact with the boat was extremely great because the boat was going fast. The guy that was driving the boat did an immediate turn and took the slack out of the sheet so that I was able to hang on. And we basically almost did a penalty turn, took me back in the back of the boat, and we lost less than a minute with the recovery and never had to call for a man overboard. One of the lessons learned here, and this is just a little one, but one of the things that made me feel panicked was when the life jacket went off. I had a bunch of gear on because it was cold, and I felt like it was choking me, like I had trouble breathing, and that kind of freaked me out. And that's one of those things, if you've never been in the water with a self-inflatable life jacket, all you got to do is push the little button and let a little bit of air out so you can breathe. But I honestly had trouble breathing, and that never occurred to me to let a little bit of air out because I didn't think about that.
Did you have crotch straps on?
Yeah, no, I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so.
So one of the things that we have to practice at the safety of sea when you do the hands-on
Yeah.
is jump in with your either automatic or manual life jacket and inflate it. And when you do that once, you realize that those crotch straps really make a big damn difference. Because it float up around here.
Right. Yeah. My current life jacket has them.
Your head floats higher.
Yep.
And the other feature I noticed when actually, never having used one before until I was forced to, because
Yep.
it costs a lot of money to recharge those things.
Yep.
So is on the spin locks, which a lot of us have, they have that hood. Huge. We did it in kind of cold weather, and just everything gets quieter. And they were developed by the British Navy so you don't get waves in your mouth when you're there. So between the crotch straps holding your head up a little higher and the hood over your head, you felt way secure.
Okay. Okay.
And
Yeah.
I'm just curious whether that was your case.
Yeah, I didn't have the crotch straps. I'm pretty sure I didn't, because the life jacket I have now has the crotch straps. The one I had before.
The other days.
Yeah. And the key of what you were saying is with I'll keep it short.
That's okay.
With the tether, I have been on a boat where we had a man overboard with the tether on. So yes, he went overboard, but he didn't go all the way under because he was on the tether. This guy, this was a Chicago Mac, horrible upwind conditions, big waves, north wind, and this guy, he was diabetic and got seasick, and everything he was eating and drinking kept coming out. So this guy was getting really, really weak, and he had to go pee. He insisted he wanted to go out, pee over the stern, and I was telling him, I said, you cannot go pee without a life jacket on. And he said he couldn't find it. So I went down below, get his life jacket. So he put his life jacket on, and then he wanted to go pee. So where's your tether? Of course, he didn't have his tether. We did make him tether in, and sure enough, he is standing out there. He gets unzipped, and he didn't even have time to start a stream. He got hit by a big wave, and he goes ass over tea kettle right off the stern, but hanging on the tether. And it took one guy driving, 5 of us pulling this guy back in. He was super, super weak, but talking about the last safety in terms of like a seatbelt, that to me is a really good indication of tethering in is really important.
Did he get to finish his pee?
Well, I'll add to that. One of the things we've learned from tether perspective, and this is stuff that we've been doing for some time, but making so your lazies, your jack lines are set up. And if you looked at Nelda Radiator, we have one down the center of our cockpit, as well as coming out of the coaming. So wherever you hook in your tether, and then even when you go out on the jack lines themselves, you can't fall off the boat. I mean, there's no way for you to fall off and drag. Because really in multi-hulls, if you fall off like that one, you're going so fast, you're going to drown somebody very, very quick. And so that's one of the big challenges. So even if you're, I mean, we stopped peeing off the back of the boat, as they say, probably several years ago, and we make people go down below. We do not do that anymore. And so we've had some close calls on that. We've heard of others that having close calls with that. We just don't do that anymore. And so, but a lot of times if you rig your jack lines, or I mean the way you keep people when they're connected to the boat, you can actually keep them so that even if they fell off, they're not going to drag. They might hang over the edge of a wing or a little bit over the edge, but they're not going to drag. And so those are all things that we've now added to safety at sea for U.S. sailing. That's really for all boats. The biggest things that we're seeing with multi-hulls is just the speed potential for us increases risks exponentially. We'll wrap this up, but again, I appreciate everybody giving some feedback on this, and if you have anything or you think of it, something, email me. Again, we're trying to put some stuff together. We're going to be another discussion like this in Kemah in 2 weeks with the multi-hull sailors down there, and so we're trying to kind of gather some of the information. What do we want to know? What do we want to learn to keep from turning this into a capsize, because at the end of the day, we shouldn't be capsizing. That really should. I know what happened to Ron. They learned from that, but if the same scenario happened today, they'd probably be a little bit more of aware, and they probably could have kept it from occurring. And so that's what we're trying to do, is not have to do it to figure out. So let's. There's an adage about a fool learns from his own mistakes, a genius learns from everybody else's. So that's what we're trying to do at this point. So with that, I appreciate it, everybody. I'm glad you could make it. Yep. Oh, you want, Alan, you got something? Sure. No. Yeah.
Ryan, go ahead.
Yep.